I'm pleased to say I can speak now to Lyal Sunga, who's a former UN human rights officer. And Lyal, we've seen the very, very disturbing images. People who see that would want some kind of justice, I would imagine. The Saudi-led coalition saying it's going to investigate the airstrike. When any organisation investigates itself, can we really expect anything to happen?
You know, the Geneva Conventions are based on that principle that the fighting parties are supposed to investigate their own combatants for violations of international humanitarian law, for war crimes or other grave breaches of the 1949 Geneva Conventions. Now, you know, it's inherently a weak system. There is also the International Humanitarian Fact-Finding Commission, which is designed to bring in an independent and objective observer. That's run by the International Committee of the Red Cross. Unfortunately, that's never been used. So, you know, Saudi Arabia or any other party who's involved, they have military courts. They should be able to prosecute it and should be able to see justice. That's how it's supposed to work. Unfortunately, over the last several years, we've seen a lot of very serious kinds of these attacks, very distressing attacks. We've seen hospitals, marketplaces, schools bombed, and I'm sure you're aware some time back there was a so-called double tap attack where the Saudi bombers came back shortly after their first attack on, actually it was, I believe it was a marketplace, and when there were first responders, they attacked the first responders. And this is clearly, you know, disproportional to use of force. It is not a legitimate military target. And you wonder what's going on here in Yemen, which is brought to the brink of complete disaster. You're getting, out of 27 million people, 18 million are in need of humanitarian assistance, 10 million under a very acute need. You have more than 500,000 cases of cholera breaking out. The other very distressing things, which has been noted by the United Nations Secretary General's representative on children or on conflict, is that children are being killed in large numbers, partly because the Houthis have been recruiting children into their, you know, 72% of children that are in the armed conflict have been recruited by Houthis. So when the Saudi attacks happen or have been perpetrated, children often are bearing the brunt, and also in the civilian context. That's why in a report recently, the UN Secretary General's representative on children in armed conflict noted particularly this kind of conflict and Saudi Arabia as rather seriously responsible for this type of carnage.
Lyal, unfortunately, we'll have to wrap things up there. Appreciate your views, though. Lyal Sunga, former UN human rights officer. Thank you.
You're welcome, Neil.